Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a journey through time, really standing at the base of humanity's most monumental constructions.
Mm.
Think of the sheer audacity, right? Building the Egyptian pyramids or those intricate Inca walls, even the soaring spires of Gothic
This
cathedrals.
is mind-boggling stuff.
Totally. How did ancient people, seemingly with only, basic tools, managed to quarry, transport, and place these multi-ton stones with such incredible accuracy? It's a question that, well, it really makes you pause, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. These structures aren't just like piles of rocks. They are profound testaments to ingenuity, to scale, and a deep intuitive understanding of materials and physics.
Regardless of the tools we think they had.
Precisely. The mystery isn't that they built them, but really in the astounding how, especially when you look at the conventional archaeological record.
That's exactly it. So our mission in this deep dive is to unpack this fascinating world of ancient masonry and construction through time.
Yeah, let's get into it.
We'll explore the enduring mysteries, delve into the prevailing archaeological theories, and maybe even consider some of the more provocative alternative perspectives, the ones that challenge our usual understanding of history.
And we've got a good stack of sources here. Scientific papers, historical accounts, even some spirited online debates.
Right, to give you a comprehensive look at this truly awe-inspiring topic, let's start digging. Okay, so to begin our global showcase, let's transport ourselves to the high Peruvian Andes. Think sites like Sacsayhuaman, Machu Picchu, Ollantaytambo.
Oh, yes. Incredible places.
What immediately grabs you there is the almost unbelievable precision of their polygonal masonry. Those massive, multi-angled stones fitted together without a speck of mortar.
It's staggering. So tight you genuinely can't slip a blade, not even a piece of paper sometimes, between them.
It's like a perfect, impossible puzzle assembled by giants.
And what's truly remarkable about this, functionally speaking, is its purpose. These structures, built of hard stones like andesite, diorite, limestone, they're famous for their earthquake resistance.
Right, in a very active seismic zone.
Exactly. The individual blocks are designed to move and sort of rotate slightly, accommodating the Earth's shifts. It's brilliant engineering.
Which brings us back to the big question. How did they quarry and transport these immense blocks, some way over 100 tons?
Yeah, huge.
From quarries miles away, often across really treacherous terrain, and then fit them with such perfection, especially on mountain cliffs.
Well, the standard explanation, the one you'll find in most textbooks, points to enormous amounts of human muscle power and thick ropes for transportation.
Which for a 100-ton stone, that represents an almost unimaginable amount of collective effort, just coordinating that.
It really does. But there's also a less conventional idea that sometimes surfaces, the acid mud theory.
Oh, okay. What's that about?
This theory, and I should stress it's largely outside mainstream archaeology, suggests a process where maybe a special acidic mud could have superficially dissolved or softened the rock surface.
Soften the rock.
Proponents argue maybe by adding oxalic acid containing plant sap, or even heating crushed pyrite in gaps between stones to generate hot sulfuric acid.
Wow, okay.
The implication of such a chemical process isn't just a clever trick, you see. It suggests an understanding of geological chemistry, of material science, far beyond what we typically attribute to these ancient societies.
It would completely reshape our view of their, intellectual toolkit if it were true.
Absolutely. It would allow for shaping and fitting stones almost like molding clay in a way.
Okay, so from the meticulous fitting of Inca walls, let's shift focus. Let's go to the sheer, almost incomprehensible scale of the Egyptian pyramids.
Right, a totally different kind of challenge.
Here are the questions around how take on this entirely new monumental dimension. The Great Pyramid of Giza alone. Estimates are between 2 and 2.8 million stone blocks.
Just staggering numbers.
And studies suggest a huge workforce, maybe over 14,000 people, peaking at 40,000, could have done it in about 10 years.
Which sounds fast, but it means placing what, like 3 blocks per minute for 10-hour workdays? Non-stop.
That's an incredible pace.
The conventional understanding involves, copper chisels, pounding stones, diorite pounders, usually maybe bronze saws, and using water and sand as abrasives. That's how they'd cut and polish even hard granite.
And researchers have studied tool marks extensively to try and figure this out.
Yes, they have. Yet, the level of precision you see in some artifacts, like granite sarcophagi or certain blocks, they're described as cut within microns of accuracy.
Microns with copper tools.
And polished, completely flat with fitted lid. It just continues to baffle many experts. Think about the immense effort, the sheer time required to grind away even a tiny amount of incredibly hard stone like granite or diorite with manual tools.
It would literally take days of effort for a very small result.
Exactly. So this degree of exactitude often feels, well, disproportionate to the proposed toolkit.
This precision certainly fuels the debates, doesn't it?
It really does.
While traditional archaeology explains a lot, you have these observations of drill holes and smooth saw marks that some sources describe as looking like almost machine-polished surfaces.
Huh.
And that sparks questions about technologies maybe not fully understood. We also frequently hear about the geopolymer theory.
Ah, yes. The idea that some stones were actually cast, like artificial concrete.
What's the thinking there?
Well, the geopolymer theory posits that some stones, maybe particularly in the pyramid's outer casing layers, weren't quarried stone, but a form of poured artificial concrete.
If that were widely true,
Wow.
it wouldn't just explain the precision you see. It would point to an entirely different industrial scale, a chemical sophistication in the ancient world that would force a major reevaluation of their technological baseline.
But what's the counter-argument?
The main counter is the distinct lack of evidence for the infrastructure needed for such a process on that scale. Where are the giant grinders, the kilns, the mills, if they were turning vast quantities of limestone into, effectively, cement?
Good point. We know ancient Egyptians did use a primitive form of gypsum mortar, but in very small amounts, mainly as a lubricant or filler, which doesn't really align with a massive concrete casting operation.
And we do have lots of evidence for quarries and transport methods like barges on the Nile.
Exactly, which strongly suggests stone was indeed cut and moved, at least for the vast majority of the blocks.
Okay, so beyond Egypt and Peru, this pattern of monumental stone construction, it pops up globally, right?
Oh, absolutely. You see it in the sophisticated structures of Chichen Itza in the Yucatan Peninsula, the impressive El Castillo Pyramid, the Tzompantli, that eerie stone skull rack.
And then there's the controversial Baalbek Trilithon in modern-day Lebanon.
Ah, Baalbek. Those stones are just enormous. Some over 500 tons, one estimated near 1,000 tons.
And the controversy is?
Well, the sheer size challenges the standard attribution to Roman construction, mainly because typical Roman quarry marks seem to be absent on these largest stones. It leads some researchers to wonder if a different, perhaps older civilization was responsible.
Interesting. And we can't forget Göbekli Tepe.
Definitely not. Göbekli Tepe in southeastern Turkey. That site truly forces a reevaluation of the roots of human civilization.
Oh, so?
It features hundreds of expertly carved T-shaped pillars, some weighing 10 to 50 tons. And these were created by people mainstream views consider hunter-gatherers, predating the invention of agriculture, predating pottery even.
Hunter-gatherers building on that scale.
Exactly. This site, dating back maybe 11,000 or 12,000 years, presents a significant challenge to our conventional timelines of societal development and technological capacity.
Okay, this is where the narrative gets really interesting, potentially controversial. Some sources propose evidence for technology not explainable by the tools found in the archaeological record.
Right. And it's important to clarify, this generally isn't about lasers or spaceships, as sometimes portrayed in popular media.
No, it's framed more as verifiable and measurable evidence of advanced tooling and machining.
Exactly. Things that seem out of place with the accepted toolkit.
So what kind of specific evidence are these proponents pointing to? What are we actually looking at?
Well, they highlight observations like tiny little drill holes pushed into andesite, the Pumabunku in Bolivia. Andesite is incredibly hard stone.
Right.
Or impossibly large tube drill diameters found in some Egyptian artifacts, suggesting a rotational speed or pressure hard to achieve manually.
Okay.
You also see things described as overcuts on precision statues, like a saw cut slightly past where it needed to stop.
Right.
And what some interpret as power tool markings on surfaces described as machined slabs.
Suggesting industrial processes.
That's the argument. These marks are often seen as standing in stark contrast to, say, the more primitive levels of technology sometimes evident nearby, or even on the same objects. Like you might see poorly carved hieroglyphs on an otherwise impeccably precision-made box.
That's odd.
The argument is that this disparity indicates maybe waves of technology, or perhaps a level of sophistication far beyond simple chisels and pounding stones for certain tasks or periods.
That's a really provocative point, which raises the question, why do archaeologists sometimes seem frustrated or face frustration in fully explaining these feats? Some sources suggest academic establishments are, quote, deeply vested in maintaining this story of history. and resist change.
That's certainly one perspective you hear.
Hmm.
The argument goes that academic authority is partly derived from being the experts on the established historical narrative.
Hmm.
So resistance to potentially paradigm-shifting change is perhaps understandable, if frustrating for those proposing alternative views.
Hmm.
The fear might be that it could discredit established authority.
The politics of knowledge.
But there's another perspective too, which is simply that it's a genuine question of lost knowledge or methods that have yet to be fully replicated or understood through experimentation. It's not necessarily suppression.
Just we haven't figured it out yet.
Right. After all, archaeologists are trying to interpret complex, often very fragmented evidence from thousands of years ago. That's inherently challenging. So both viewpoints offer possible reasons for the ongoing debate and the persistence of these mysteries.
Okay, connecting this to the bigger picture then. Some theories bring in major cataclysmic events, like the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis.
Ah, yes, the idea of a comet impact or airburst around 12,900 to 11,700 years ago.
Exactly. Could something like that have wiped out a preceding, maybe more advanced civilization? The notion is that sites like the original pyramids or structures with that super precise polygonal masonry might actually predate the later cultures we attribute them to.
And that those later cultures like the dynastic Egyptians or the Incas then perhaps reused, inherited, or built on top of these much older foundations.
Right, possibly with what these theories suggest are inferior skills, tools, and knowledge compared to the original builders.
This hypothesis suggests a significant global event causing widespread destruction, climate change, maybe a societal reset. It feeds into ideas like the speculative phantom time hypothesis, which suggests a fabricated dark age where knowledge was lost.
The core idea being we're missing potentially 200K years of our history and that ancient people were capable of much more than we currently assume.
That's the thrust of it. Some proponents even claim, for instance, that archaeologists quietly removed salt incrustations from the lower sections of the pyramids, allegedly evidence of a pre-flood origin.
Implying later Egyptians were just doing maintenance work on much older structures.
Exactly. Built by a far older, perhaps lost, civilization. If true, this would fundamentally shift our timeline of human technological achievement.
Wow. Okay, moving beyond the purely technological, what's also truly fascinating is how certain universal patterns seem to appear in ancient structures globally. Sacred geometry.
Yes, the measure of the earth, as it's sometimes defined. It involves specific ratios, proportions found mirrored in nature, in cosmic alignments, perhaps even in human DNA.
So this isn't just about building sturdy walls, it's about connecting with something deeper, a kind of universal harmony.
That seems to be the idea. The phi ratio, for example, the golden ratio, about 1.618, is demonstrably present or very closely approximated in the proportions of the Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, the Parthenon, and Athens.
It pops up everywhere.
It does. Some believe these mathematical alignments were consciously used to link heaven with earth, to evoke a spiritual connection, maybe even enhance certain energies.
It suggests the builders were not just engineers, but maybe philosophers, spiritual practitioners.
Who understood fundamental structures of existence, perhaps,
Right.
and sought to replicate them in their monumental works.
And this goes even further into some pretty esoteric territory, right? Alternative theories for Gothic cathedrals, other sites, suggesting things like sound levitation.
Or resonant prayer being used to move massive stones.
Huh.
Yes, these ideas propose that the structures themselves might be complex metaphysical machines,
Metaphysical machines. How so?
encoding cosmic cycles or maybe geometric sound codes. It's a completely different lens, viewing these structures not just as static monuments, but as dynamic instruments almost,
Instrument.
potentially designed to resonate with specific energies or frequencies, maybe influencing consciousness or perhaps even acting as tools for physical manipulation, like moving heavy objects through sound.
That's quite a leap from ropes and ramps.
It certainly is. But you see echoes of this connection between geometry and the transcendent in other traditions too. Islamic sacred architecture, for example, uses abstract geometric forms, complex star patterns, tessellations very deliberately,
To what end?
to inspire a transcendent experience, to connect the viewer visually to the concept of oneness or twud. The intricate designs often unfold from a central point, mirroring the concept of creation itself emanating from a single source.
So the geometry itself becomes a meditative focus.
Precisely. The very act of contemplating these intricate, seemingly infinite patterns can lead the viewer towards a deeper spiritual connection.
And tied into this broader perspective on cosmic connections, there's also the idea of ley lines.
Ah, yes, those hypothetical lines of energy, supposedly connecting important ancient sites across the globe.
So the idea is that the placement of these megalithic structures wasn't arbitrary.
Exactly. These theories suggest alignment with perceived energy currents in the Earth, implying an even deeper, more integrated understanding of their environment and the cosmos by the builders, perhaps even tapping into or influencing the energetic properties of the locations themselves. It adds another potential layer to the why behind these monumental efforts.
So, okay, whether it was through, advanced lost technologies or just immense, incredibly organized human effort with relatively simple tools, the construction of these ancient marvels clearly speaks to an incredible human capacity.
Undeniably.
But what does this all mean for understanding who built these structures and why? It can't just be about technology, right? There's had to be profound social and economic systems underpinning such colossal undertakings.
Absolutely. And this is where ethnoarchaeology offers some really valuable insights, studying modern or recent cultures that still engage in similar practices.
Like where? What can we learn?
Well, studies from places like Sumba in Indonesia or Nagaland in northeast India are fascinating. In Sumba, for instance, building megalithic tombs is still central to burial rites.
So it's about honoring the dead.
Yes, but it's also deeply tied to symbolizing prosperity, social standing. The construction itself is a massive collective effort, directly linked to a family's wealth and status in the community.
Wow.
It's so ingrained that even simple earth graves are often considered just temporary, until the family can afford to build a proper megalithic tomb. It shows this deep societal motivation, beyond just practicality.
And Nagaland? What happens there?
In parts of Nagaland, megalith building is, or was, intrinsically linked to something called feasts of merit.
Feasts of merit.
Yeah. Wrecking standing stones, or megaliths, symbolizes the successful completion of a whole series of prescribed ritual feasts. It signifies high social status and prestige for the feast giver, the sponsor.
So it's a status symbol, basically.
A very significant one. And again, these projects involved huge collective labor, dozens, sometimes over 100 people, pulling massive stones, often accompanied by feasting and ceremony. It makes it clear these weren't just individual whims, but fundamental community projects.
Driven by social prestige, spiritual belief, community cohesion.
Exactly. Which raises an important question for archaeologists studying the distant past. Can we apply these modern observations of collective, prestige-driven construction to ancient societies, like the funnel beaker communities in Neolithic Europe, for example?
Who also built megalithic tombs, right?
Yes, but the studies suggest a very high workload was required to build those tombs, often alongside evidence of very small settlement sizes during that period.
Meaning small groups were doing massive amounts of work.
It implies a level of cooperation, shared purpose, maybe even social coercion that goes far beyond just basic survival needs. It suggests the presence of powerful social structures and belief systems capable of mobilizing such immense, sustained efforts from relatively small populations.
So ultimately, these ancient marvels, they're more than just engineering feats. They're profound statements about the societies themselves.
They absolutely are. The buildings often serve not just practical purposes like, say, the earthquake-resistant walls of the Incas, which were incredibly functional, but also deep cultural, religious, and social functions. Think of royal estates and sacred religious sites like Machu Picchu or Coricancha in Cusco, or fortifications and grand ceremonial centers like Sacsayhuaman,
They were expressions of power, belief, community identity.
all encoded in stone. They tell us as much about the worldview, the social structure, the priorities of the societies that built them, as they do about the engineering challenges they overcame. They literally embody their civilizations. Hashtag outro.
So we've journeyed through millennia of stone construction today, from the astonishing precision of the Incas to the sheer monumental scale of the Egyptian pyramids.
Quite a trip.
We've touched on those fascinating debates about potential lost technologies and the deep symbolic meanings that seem to be embedded in so many of these ancient structures.
And we've also considered that vital human element, the societal organization, the collective effort, drawing those powerful parallels from contemporary megalithic traditions.
The how and the why of ancient masonry, they clearly remain fertile ground for debate, for innovation, and for ongoing discovery, don't they?
Absolutely. It's a potent reminder that our understanding of history is never really finished. It's always evolving, and there's probably so much more to uncover, maybe challenging what we currently think we know.
Definitely. So as we continue to try and uncover the secrets etched in stone, here's something to think about. What seemingly impossible feats of construction, or maybe even social organization, are our own societies capable of today? And looking forward, what will future generations wonder about our methods, our motivations, when they look back at the monuments, digital or physical, that we leave behind?
A profound thought to end on.
Thank you for deep diving with us today.